What's up, basketball fans? Welcome to the Warrants Report. It's time to talk about how the Toronto Raptors player is going to surprise a lot of people next season. So, in the 3 games he has played during this offseason, he has scored 73 points at the crossover games. He has also scored 52 points in the Drew League. And then just yesterday in the Ball Don't Stop Pro-Am games in Toronto, he scored an insane 54 points. Now, I know it is just offseason, but it's fun to talk about this because this player is really going to surprise a lot of people. And this player is no other than Malachi Flynn. Now, obviously, if you're not a Raptors fan, you're probably wondering who this player is. And I'm going to be breaking that down for you guys in today's video. So if you're ready to watch this video, make sure to hit the thumbs up. It does help get this video out a lot more. Let's try to get this video to 150 likes. And if you want to hit the subscribe button as well, that would be very much appreciated. So with that being said, let's get into today's video. Now, as you guys know, I do like to give out shout outs on my channel. And for today's video, the shout out goes out to Dark Knight. So Dark Knight, thank you so much for supporting this channel through your likes and comments. It is very much appreciated. All right, guys, now you're probably wondering why he's going to surprise a lot of people next season. It doesn't seem like a very familiar name that a lot of people outside of maybe the Raptors fan bases is familiar with. Malachi Flynn is a 6'1" point guard. He was drafted a couple seasons ago, and famously, as a lot of Raptors fans like to say, he was drafted ahead of Desmond Bane. Now, shout out to Desmond Bane, who's been having a really good, successful early career with the Memphis Grizzlies. But Malachi Flynn has just really been in a strange situation with the Toronto Raptors. The Raptors did play in Tampa, and towards the end of that season, they kind of just obligated to rest some of their starters. Some were injuries. They ultimately did decide to tank, and Malachi Flynn did get some really consistent minutes, and he actually won the Rookie of the Month in his first season with the Toronto Raptors. But the second season, last season with the Toronto Raptors, he really did struggle. Nick Nurse, Raptors head coach, really just did not give him very many minutes, and the Raptors really struggled off of the bench. Well, Malachi struggled with just playing consistent basketball, but he really just didn't get consistent minutes. So I don't know if it's fair to just say Malachi Flynn struggled, because it was a little bit of a tough situation where the Raptors weren't really sure where they stood, where they were championships or were they contenders, were they lottery. There's a lot of questions surrounding the Toronto Raptors coming into last season. And obviously the Raptors surprised everyone, except for me, who I had predicted the Raptors finishing where they did in the Eastern Conference last season. But Malachi Flynn, unfortunately, just did not get very many minutes. So unfortunately, a lot of people did think he struggled a bit, but I do want to clear some things. Now, Malachi Flynn, he just didn't get the opportunity. When the Raptors did have this vision of drafting Malachi Flynn, one of the major reasons they actually drafted Malachi Flynn was because his game replicates the Raptors all-star last season, Fred VanVleet. So Raptors and Fred VanVleet and Malachi Flynn do have a lot of similarities in how they play their game. Even though they're the point guard position, they're score first point guards, and Malachi Flynn just did not see consistent minutes. Now, obviously, he did struggle last season with not only finding consistent minutes, but when he was given consistent minutes, he struggled a bit with his shooting. But I do want to address a few things. Oftentimes, when we talk about NBA players struggling, we take a lot of things, we miss a lot of things, I should say, that really don't go into factoring why they're struggling. Obviously, Malachi Flynn, coming into this league, is still a very young player. He's 24 years old, but it was just his second season last season. But he did struggle a bit. Now, the reason was because the Raptors did have very good starters, but their bench was consistent of very young players. They had Malachi Flynn, who was coming in. They had rookie Delano Banton, who had a really good year as a rookie. And then they also had some other players as well. Precious Achiuwa really struggled to start the season. Chris Boucher was supposed to be your sixth man. He really struggled as well. And there was just really not very many veterans off of the bench for the Raptors. And Malachi Flynn really just struggled to find his footing last season. But a lot of people are putting the blame on Nick Nurse. I don't think that's necessarily fair to put the blame on the coach. As I've always stated on this channel, there's a lot of things we don't see behind the scenes. Maybe Malachi Flynn is showing up late to practices. Maybe he's done something that obviously, maybe perhaps he's not listening to the coach when the coach wants him to play a certain way, and maybe he's playing another way. But I think Malachi Flynn is ready to take the next step. I truly believe, and I said this all of last season, Malachi Flynn really hit the sophomore slump, and that is a real thing. He really struggled to find minutes. He didn't score at all. He wasn't playing like himself. And so far this offseason, he's looked very impressive. Not only is he shooting the ball well, I think he's really increased his three-point shooting range as well, which is going to be huge for the Toronto Raptors, because the Raptors, as we know on the channel, I've mentioned several times, were dead last in point production off of the bench. Now, the Raptors have improved their bench quite a bit, which I think is ultimately going to help Malachi Flynn improve his game, but also just help him find a little bit more consistent minutes. The Raptors entering last season came in with a lot of young guys, and this season they have a consistent bench of some veterans. Obviously, they brought back Thaddeus Young, Chris Boucher, as well as Otto Porter Jr. as well. So they have a couple of very nice veterans coming off of the bench that can really just help guide some of these younger guys and just help them grow as well. So I think Malachi Flynn, I know people will say, well, Isaiah Thomas has scored, 80 plus points in the Pro-Am games. I forget where it was, Drew League as well, but this is a different situation. Isaiah Thomas, I still think he belongs in the NBA, just doesn't understand his role because, I mean, his ego is a little bit inflated from, back the Brink truck up or whatever he was suggesting to the Celtics back several years ago. So I think with Isaiah Thomas, it's more of just not him being in the right situation, but also just not understanding that he's no longer the player he was, and then he has to really fit into that role. So Malachi Flynn, it's a completely different situation. I know a lot of Raptors fans have suggested that he doesn't exactly fit the mold of having these 6'8", 6'9" guys with long wingspan. But I will say this, guys, that playoff series versus the 76ers, if there was an indication of one thing, it was quite obvious. As good as Scottie Barnes is at defending, as good as Pascal Siakam is at defending, you still need some of these shorter guards to guard guys like Tyrese Maxey, who was absolutely torturing, seemed like any Raptors that was trying to guard him. Now, obviously, Fred VanVleet did suffer some knee injuries or having some knee issues, and which ultimately just caused him to play really poorly in the second half of the season. But also, I think Nick Nurse, he really needs to step up and give some minutes to some of these younger guys, let them work through their mistakes. And I think Malachi Flynn is set to have a big season for the Toronto Raptors. And it's going to be one of those situations where a lot of YouTubers are going to be dropping the Raptors content and saying, how did we not see this coming? Malachi Flynn, I think he's ready to take the next step. He's a very talented player. Unfortunately, he just did not get the opportunity. Masai Ujiri, Raptors executive, has stated several times that he has faith in Malachi Flynn. So again, I think it's just one of those situations where he just wasn't playing all that well, but it wasn't just that. He was struggling a bit with the shooting, but he was also just getting very inconsistent minutes as well. So I think he's ready to have a really good season. He's going to surprise a lot of people with how well he's able to play basketball. I think his talents will be on display. Now, that's not normally to suggest that he's going to break out and average 20 points. I think that's a little bit far stretched given where he is on the bench depth as well. Like I said, the Raptors do have Thaddeus Young. They have Chris Boucher. They brought in Otto Porter Jr. and even Precious Achiuwa is very likely to be ahead of Malachi Flynn in the pecking order. So he's very likely to be the fifth option, even off of the bench. So I'm not necessarily expecting him to put up big numbers, but I think just his style of play is going to surprise a lot of people. He has the talent, and he's kind of an underrated defender. I think people just see him get pushed around because he's smaller in size. He's 6'1", but he did a pretty decent job on guarding James Harden on the few possessions. We did see him against the 76ers in the playoffs, but I'm excited to see Malachi Flynn. I think he's going to have a big season next season, and also will just take some minutes off of Fred VanVleet as well, who led the league in minutes played last season. And I think one of the reasons the Raptors did not sign a backup point guard was for this exact reason. The Raptors obviously want to work on some of these younger guys and develop them, but I also believe Masai Ujiri has a lot of faith in Malachi Flynn, and I think Malachi Flynn is set to break out next season. Like I said, again, am I expecting him to become an all-star next season? Absolutely not. Am I expecting him to even score 15 points per game? Not at all. But I think his style of play is going to surprise a lot of people. It may not be so much around the statistics, just how well he plays with the Toronto Raptors. So you're going to see a new Malachi Flynn. I think he's set to really just set his foot in the NBA, finally get comfortable in his role, and he's going to have a great season with the Toronto Raptors. But I do want to hear your thoughts. What are your thoughts on Malachi Flynn? Do you think he can potentially be a really surprise player, not only for the Raptors, but just surprise a lot of fans around the NBA? What are your thoughts? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. And as always, guys, I do have a trivia question for you today. And that trivia question is, Kyle Lowry first became an all-star in his blank season. So fill in the blank. Is it A, 6th season? Is it B, 8th season? Is it C, 11th season? Or was it D, 13th season? So whoever answers this trivia question correctly first in the comment section will get a shout out in my next video. So that will be it for today's video, guys. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope you guys have yourselves a great day. Very many minutes. We actually had a pretty decent rookie of, rookie. He has also scored 52, excuse me,